By the way, when we say here that tzaddikim are in control of their hearts and rishoyim are not in control of their hearts, so there's a famous mashal. It's brought many times about.
Okay, we're live on Facebook. Just so you know.
How did you do that? How? Okay, so I heard this at a Verbringen on a Shabbos from Rabbi Beryl Baumgarten, who established Chabad in Argentina as a shliach of the previous Rebbe. And he said that why is a human being created walking on 2 feet? You should walk on 2 feet. And animals are created that they should walk on 4 feet. Because when you walk on 4 feet, your head and your heart are on the same level. So that your heart very easily rules over your head. Whereas that's how animals operate, according to their instincts. And animals can be very clever. And animals have a specific wisdom that Hashem plants within them that they need to function. Each animal has tremendous wisdom that people don't even have. But that's not because their mind rules over their heart. That's in wisdom that's implanted in them. They don't make intellectual decisions. But people, our head is above our body, above our heart, for 2 reasons. Number 1 reason, so we can look up and see the sky. And remember, every morning, Shema Yisrael, lift up your eyes on high and behold the majesty and the wonders of creation, of Hashem who created all this. The second reason is so that your mind can rule over your heart, because everybody knows in conflict, the one who's in possession of the high ground has a distinct advantage. Our mind can always rule over our heart. Page 239, continuing with this idea. So the Alter Rebbe says that it's true, tzaddikim rule over their heart, and we cannot, and ordinary people do not rule over their heart. That's a gift that comes from a lifetime of sincerely trying to serve Hashem. Hashem can open your heart for you, but otherwise, you cannot rule over your heart. You cannot control your heart and just turn on the love like that, but you can control your mind. A person can always control his mind. How can you do that? And the answer is, you think about something else. And a person can say, yeah, but I can't just think about something else. And the answer is, yes, you can. And we can prove this to you, because when you're very concerned about something that's on your mind, let's say there's something you really, really want, like a relationship, and maybe it's not working out, and you're very upset about it, and you can't get anything else you can't concentrate. You go to a shir, you can't concentrate because you're thinking about the difficulties you're having with this relationship. And then all of a sudden you get a phone call that, heaven forbid, your mother, your brother, your sister, your father, your grandfather is in the hospital, and you got to come home right away, and you're rushing it. All of a sudden you're not thinking about that relationship anymore. Until you sit down in the plane and you calm down, and then you can start, it'll come back at you. But for those moments, you think about something else. So a person has to prepare. How do we prepare to deal with the Yetzer Hara? It's like war. A person has to prepare for conflict. An athlete has to prepare for his for the next time he has to compete. How do we? A person has to prepare for a test. How do you prepare to deal with the Yetzer Hara? And one way is that you have to prepare topics that you enjoy, things you enjoy thinking about, things that are inspiring to you. And if you learn them by heart, then by concentrating on them, you can take your mind off of what's bothering you. And we can do this. It's not always easy, but we can do it. We can be in control of our mind. That's what the Rebbe is saying here. So here when it says, it's in your mouth the thing is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart to do it, the fact that it puts together in your heart to do it means that what's required of you is not a flaming, fiery love of God in your heart, but a love of God that will lead you to do practical mitzvahs, to reach in your pocket and give that tzedakah to the poor person, or to extend some food to a hungry person who knocks at your door, or to forget about looking at this catalog of wonderful things that you might like to acquire and sit down and open a book and come to a shir. A feeling for Yiddishkeit that leads you to do it, even if it's not a flaming fire of love in your heart. Shirius to the Liba, so where does it come from? The bottom of page 239, we're about to turn over. It comes from a love that's hidden in the recesses of your heart. It's there. It's a natural love, and we learned in the last chapter, it comes to us as an inheritance. We get it from our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents. Even though it's not a burning, fiery love in our heart. Turning over to page 240 now. This is reviewing what we did yesterday, because I think we're on Facebook now, so that means we might even have some new people attending the shir. Okay. And this kind of a love is very close to all of us. It's easy for any person. He's got brains in his head. He can do it. The Alter Rebbe uses a very sharp expression here. Anybody who's got brains in his head can do this. Because your brains are, you have control over what you think. So a person can think about whatever he wants. You can't feel whatever you want, but you can think about whatever you want. Well, you'll remember how you started learning Tanya, and you came to chapter 3, and we learned about how to think about the greatness of Hashem. Just look around you, look at the world coming alive in the spring, or look at what's the world going through its transformations in the autumn with all the beautiful colors, or think about the beauty when in the wintertime when there's no leaves on the trees and you see the tremendous symmetry as you walk down the parkway. Or when you're walking down the block in the spring, you see all these buds coming out on the trees, and you understand that this is just, you're looking at one tree, and how many trees are there in the neighborhood, in the city, in the state, in the country, in the world, and Hashem is personally taking care of the wonderful life and beautifully created in every single detail, to the farthest reaches of outer space, to the most microscopic molecular structure of life. It's truly amazing, and a person's mind is filled with a sense of awe and love of the greatness of Hashem's creation. And then beyond that, you think, go to stage 2. That Hashem is not just filling the whole world with life, not just creating everything. He's bigger than all that. It's like the whole of creation. The whole of creation is not even one drop of water out of the ocean. Not even one drop of water. You know, it wouldn't make the headlines if you took a glass of water out of the ocean. Nobody would notice. And how much more so even one single drop? And the whole of creation isn't even one single drop in the infiniteness of Hashem. And then we go to stage 3, which is this whole concept of how Hashem creates the world. Hashem is greater than the world. The whole concept of world has no place in when you think about godliness. That before the world was created, before the world was even thought, before it was even a thought in the mind of Hashem, before it was even a thought in the recesses of the mind of Hashem, there was only Hashem. There wasn't even Hashem and a name of Hashem. There was only Hashem. Then you got to stage 3. A person cannot help but feel, at least intellectually, an awe for something that's so much greater than himself or herself or the relationship that was so disturbing you. Because your mind is in your under your control. And a person can meditate whatever he wants. Page 240. Continuing from yesterday, when a person will think about the greatness of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, of the infinite one, blessed be he, Memela, automatically, Yoilid b'moiche, in your mind, there will arise, like a newborn creation, Al Kolponim, at least, Ha'avala Hashem, a desire to be connected with the source of all life. L'davka boy, to be connected to him, to cling to him. And how do I cling to the invisible? I'm a little puny person. How do I cling to the infinite? And the answer is the mitzvahs. That's always the answer, That's the answer. Every question, if you're ever stuck, you're daydreaming in class and the teacher suddenly calls on you and asks you the answer, just say Torah and mitzvahs. It's always the answer. So here's the big, all the questions from big to small, it's always the same answer. Torah and mitzvahs, because Hashem puts himself into the Torah. The whole Torah is Hashem's name. When you call someone's name, they respond. Look, if I'm going to call Chana's name now, she's going to look up. Chana. Chana, are you with us? Chana van Blargen. I guess I'm seeing your picture, but not a live response.
It's frozen. Her picture is frozen.
It's frozen? Oh, there's Mrs. Cohen. Mrs. Cohen, how are you today? You see, you call a person's name, they respond. So when we learn a line of Torah, we're calling Hashem's name. That's why I say a person who's koire b'Torah. He's learning Torah. The word for learning is actually calling. The person who reads the Torah in shul is called a Baal Koire. He's calling Hashem's name. The whole Torah is Hashem's name. So Hashem puts himself into the Torah, and he puts himself at an even higher level into mitzvahs. There's a debate that runs through the Talmud. Which is greater, Torah or mitzvahs? What do you think? Which is greater? You would think.
Mitzvahs.
You think mitzvahs are greater? Well, not necessarily, because if I don't learn Torah, how am I going to know how to do mitzvahs? So Kabbalah, Tanya brings this bit of Kabbalah down, that Torah represents the wisdom of God, and mitzvahs are the desire, God's will. And so we know that your willpower can control your brains, can control your intellectual power. And we've met people who, because they really wanted to become a master of a certain concept, they became very proficient in it because their desire was so strong. Nothing stands before a strong desire. So your desire is on a higher level even than your intellect. So it seemed that mitzvahs are greater because they're from the level of desire, of willpower. They're Hashem's will. We should do this mitzvah. And Torah is the wisdom that's in that mitzvah. So it would seem that mitzvahs are higher. And I saw on the screen, Mrs. Cohen came on, and right away I saw her. I could read her lips. She said, mitzvahs are greater. Yeah, and it's true. But the Gemara doesn't conclude like that. Rabbi Akiva says, there you go. There's always a catch. It's true that mitzvahs are greater, but we're going to say the Talmud concludes, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, that Torah is greater because through learning Torah, we get to do mitzvahs. What kind of learning Torah? Torah that leads us to do mitzvahs. Because without Torah, we're not going to do the mitzvahs. And Torah itself is a mitzvah, so therefore they conclude that Torah is greater. So by keeping Torah and mitzvahs, either one, with our mind, we grasp, we connect with the intellect of Hashem. And by learning words of Torah, this is spiritually like embracing Hashem, kissing Hashem, because when a person learns Torah in the name of a sage, it says the lips of the sage move in the grave. This person could be not on this world, not on the earth for thousands of years, but when we learn something that he taught in his name, his lips move together with us as we say it. So the Alter Rebbe's lips are moving together with us as we are learning the Tanya. How do you like that? And when a person does a mitzvah, that's how you physically embrace Hashem, because your body is now embracing the mitzvah. You are doing it with all of your limbs. Says the great Tzaddikus Bruria, the wife of Rebbe Meir, in learning Torah, you have to do learning Torah like a mitzvah with all the limbs of your body. If you're learning Torah with such involvement that you learn it with all the limbs of your 248 limbs of your body, then you'll remember it. If you only learn it with your brains and it's superficial, it'll disappear. Okay, so Hashem puts himself into Torah and puts himself into mitzvahs. When we learn Torah, it's like we're embracing Hashem. And when we do mitzvahs, we are physically becoming Hashem. So Hashem was in a human body. He'd be doing the mitzvah that we're doing. V'zeh kol adam, and that's who we are. That's the whole of a person's being. Ki hayom la'asoisen k'siv, because it says, where can you do mitzvahs? The day before, the Shabbos before I got married, I was in Kfar Chabad. I didn't know anybody. I was a newcomer there. I had just come to Israel in order to get married. I plunked myself down in the yeshiva, and I happened to know the mashpia personally because his son was my good friend from London, Beryl Futterfass. Shalom Dov ben Leah should have a refuah shalema. And he said to me, I'll verbring with you. Come, Shabbos, I'll verbring for you. So that was a big schus that he verbringed on the Shabbos before I got married. And one of the things that he said in the verbringen is you have to know kinderlach. You have to know there's no esroigim in Gan Eden. If you want a bench on a lulav and an esrog, you're not going to be able to do it in the world to come. You can only do it here in this world. You can only get an esrog on Kingston Avenue or 13th or 14th Avenue in Borough Park or wherever the esrog seller is in your community. I'm just looking at the bottom of my screen to know how we're doing time in terms of time. Oh, wait, we've got another quarter hour. Good. Because in order to learn Torah, you need to have a physical mouth. You have to have a tongue. You have to have teeth. You have to have lips. You have to have cheeks. You have to have breath in your lungs. You have to be a physical breathing person. And in order to do a mitzvah, you need physical limbs. So that's the only way that you can embrace Hashem and connect your mind with Hashem's mind is if you have a physical mind. So that's why it says, Hayom la'asoisem, we are here in this world to do mitzvahs today, because tomorrow we can't do mitzvahs anymore. Whatever you get while you're here, that's what you're going to have. You're not going to have anything more. There's no more mitzvahs left to do after you leave. So chap the don't waste a minute. The Lamachar says, and the Lamachar Chuli says, the saying continues, today to do them, tomorrow to receive the reward, when it's not the reward that we're after. As is written elsewhere. Page 241. And since our mind is under our control, and our mind naturally, by the nature of what our mind is, it rules over cholol hasmali shabalev, what's going on in the left side of our heart. The Toldose, that's how we're created. Al piv, and our mind can rule over what we say. That it's definitely not the right thing to say gossip and slander, but you can hold yourself in. The Alter Rebbe even quotes at one point the greatness of a person who has some delicious piece of information to share with his friends, and he keeps his mouth shut. That's a negative, fulfilling a negative mitzvah. It's a very big one. It's a very hard one, because you're just bursting to share this interesting piece of information with everybody else and enjoy it all over again, savor it once more, and you keep your mouth shut because your mind rules over your heart and over your mouth. Ba'al kol ha'evrim, and over all the other limbs, shem kli ha'maisa, with which we do all the activities that we do. All the activities that we do, like there's a cleaner's right near where Mrs. Cohen lives, around the corner, and it says, "We do all the cleaners does." Imlay mishahu rasha bemis. So who are we talking? We're talking about a person rules over his heart unless he's a rasha. Now, this makes things a lot. Now the plot thickens. Things get much more complicated. Does that mean to say that until now we've only been talking about tzaddikim and beinonim? Because we've learned that in chapter 11, that most people are rashoyim. Because if you do a transgression, like from the first page of the Tanya, we learned if you do a transgression, you don't keep a mitzvah of the Torah, you're a rasha. If you don't keep a mitzvah of the rabbis, you're a rasha. If you don't keep a custom and that's instituted by the rabbis, you're called a rasha. If you don't stop somebody from doing something wrong, and you could stop them, you're called a rasha. So most people are rashoyim, but they're constantly doing tshuva. They understand that it's a mistake, and they feel bad, and they don't want to do it again. So they have experience, they have regret, and they have thoughts of doing tshuva. But the problem is that their tshuva isn't strong enough to hold that position, and they fall again. So therefore, the sages teach us, and we learned in chapter 11, Rishoyim are full of regrets. Why are they full of regrets? Because they're constantly making mistakes all over again, because they're not really able to plant the resolve to cling to Hashem in their heart, and the Yetzer Hara harasses them with desires to do things that interfere with their service of Hashem, and they trip up all over again, and then they regret, and the process goes on and on and on until the.
Rabbi Pape?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? If they're Rishayim, then why are so a Rasha would regret something bad that he does?
Yeah. Rishayim are full of regrets, and at that and therefore they have hirhurei tshuva, they have thoughts of doing tshuva, and they don't want to make this mistake. And you said a nice juicy piece of information. You shared it with somebody. It was none of their business, and it was confidential. You knew it. You weren't supposed to share it. That's called lashon hara. And after you say, "I really shouldn't have done that," well, you shouldn't have done it. Right now, you're not in a good spiritual place. So you decide, next time I'll be more careful. So you had regret, and you did tshuva. But unfortunately, the next time does come along, and a person makes a mistake all over again, because the selfish desires of the Yetzer Hara are very strong. And when do you have control over your Yetzer Hara? When you're davening, we say Kriya Shema. When you're davening Shmona Esrei, then you succeed and push the Yetzer Hara out of the left side of your heart, and then your Beinoni is on the level of a tzaddik. But then after the davening, chapter 12, we learned this. After davening, the flaming fires of love die down in your heart, and it just you have an afterglow. It's still warm, but it's not flaming. And the Yetzer Hara comes charging back. He says, "What are you doing in my place? It's my spot. It's my spot. This is where I belong. I was here before you even thought of coming." 12 years. All of a sudden you come along, you want to say that you belong here. So when did you become the boss? Who made you the boss over the left side of your heart? Okay. The Alter Rebbe made me the boss. Okay. Unless a person is really a Kamaima Razal, bottom of page 241. Because wicked people are controlled by their heart. Their heart is not under their control whatsoever. Page 242. And that's a punishment. Now, anybody studies a little psychology knows this, that when you do something wrong, you become committed to it. I once read in an article, I'm not a psychology major, but I read in an article once that when a person does something wrong, he knows it was wrong. He feels terrible about himself. He feels guilty doesn't like to feel guilty. It's uncomfortable to feel guilty. So what are you going to do about it? You have two choices. Either you're going to turn away from it with strength, you're going to do tshuva, or you're going to make peace with it and rationalize it and say it wasn't so bad, and you'll allow yourself to do it again. And that dulls it. So a person who commits spiritual murder of his godly soul by doing an avera, what's he going to do? He feels guilty. So the easy answer of the Yetzer Hara is do it again. It's not so bad. Come on. Don't give yourself a hard time. That's the whole trouble with Judaism. It gives you such a guilt complex. Yeah, I've heard those things. You've heard them before, right? Who are you after?
Rabbi, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I was just looking at this question about whether or not Russia regrets. And in Tanya chapter 3, we learned that they do not regret if they are Russia veralo. They don't regret. And the other one, Russia vetalo.
Russia veraloi. The Russia veraloi is a person who
They
has no
do.
regrets. The Russia veraloi says in under chapter 11, right?
Yeah.
Russia veraloi, ein lo harata lo boy melav hirhore tshuva klal. He doesn't have any thoughts of doing tshuva. But who is this Russia veraloi? I tell you the truth, I don't know anybody like that.
Okay, so there's two types of Russia, and one of them
We have to have,
regrets. And
it's like you have to have on the books that if a person does such and such a transgression, he incurs the death penalty. But how many people actually get executed? If one person got executed in 70 years, we said it was a bloody court. But it has to be there on the books. So the rush of a Raloi, he never has any regrets. But I don't know anybody like that. I never met such a person. Even people who were in the eyes of the government, wicked people. I read a book once. I wouldn't keep it in my house. I didn't want the children to look at it. It was a book, somebody was fascinated. He wrote a whole book about gangsters, Jewish gangsters, the mafia, Jewish mafia. And they did terrible things, but they did good things too. And the book was called, But He Was Good to His Mother. He was good to his mother. Meir Lansky was called, I hope this is not Lashon Hara, he was called Murder Incorporated. He was a genius. He was in business, and he ran the business of the mafia. Yeah, but he had a Jewish heart. He would go out of his way to help Jewish people. There's no, a Jewish person, it's the Talmud testifies. I'm going to digress now. The Talmud testifies about a Jewish person, an ordinary Jewish person, a sinner, yeah, that he's as full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate is full of seeds. Can you imagine? How many, did you ever count how many seeds are in a pomegranate? I tried once. I couldn't get to the end. It says there's 613. Some people have tried. Some people, sometimes they try and count how many seeds are actually in the pomegranate. The Torah says there's 613 seeds in a pomegranate, just like there's 613 mitzvahs. And somebody once came to the Rebbe. He had a personal problem. He came to the Rebbe from a group, a Hasidic group that were not encouraging Lubavitchers at all. They were very antagonistic to Lubavitch. And the Rebbe greeted him with great warmth, and he said, tell me something from your leader. Tell me, what did the Rav have to say? And all of a sudden, the guy's mind went blank because he couldn't remember anything. He said, I don't know. I can't remember anything. Couldn't remember. There must be something. Last time you sat at a tish, what did the Rav say? Couldn't remember. Question. Digression on digression. Did the Rebbe take away his memory? What happened? How come all of a sudden this guy couldn't remember anything? Anybody couldn't remember anything. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, the Rebbe encourages him to remember. Say, oh, yeah, now I remember. He said he has a question on this thing, and it says in the Gemara that the Poishe Yisrael are as full of mitzvahs as pomegranates full of seeds. He says, I couldn't understand. How could it be that a person is a sinner can be full of mitzvahs? That's what the Rav said. The Rebbe said to him, smiled at him, said, I have the same question, he said. Only by me, the question's the other way around. He doesn't understand how can a person who's a sinner be full of mitzvahs, which means how does he look on such a person he looks on him as a sinner, right? The Rebbe says, I have the same question but from a different point of view. I don't understand how can a person be full of mitzvahs and the Torah calls him a sinner? Because the Rebbe's point of view is I look on the person naturally that he's good. That's the essence of the Jewish person, that he's good. How come he does it? Why would the Torah call him a Paishe Yisrael, a sinner? And the Rebbe is going to conclude, as Hasidus does, that like in Basi Lagani, and we learned in chapter 12 already, we learned this. Basi Lagani is just repeating the words of the Alter Rebbe. Ein Adam Oiver Avera, as Rabbi Akiva teaches us, Rabbi Akiva, the hero of Lag BaOmer, the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Akiva says, no person will ever do a sin except the spirit of folly enters into him. And he thinks that if he does this transgression, it doesn't mean that he's not a Jew. It doesn't mean he's not connected to Hashem. He's very close to Hashem. That's what Yitzhar tells him. Don't worry about it. You're still close to Hashem. So that it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. Don't worry. You'll be all right. So that's the attitude of the Baal Shem Tov that we get from the Maggid and from the Alter Rebbe and from all the teachers of Hasidus. The natural and the inner essence of a Jewish person is good, holy. Is neshama. And sometimes it gets clouded over, it gets blocked. The Yetzer Hara is just like a thick curtain and blocks out the light. But the sun is, it can be a cloudy day. Above the clouds, the sun is still shining. The sun doesn't stop shining just because it's cloudy. So comes a big wind and blows away the clouds, and there's the sun. So a person comes, tshuva is like a big wind, blows away the nonsense, the folly from your heart, and there's an neshama shining bright. There's a better thing that I do now than I've ever done. Yeah. So what are we discussing here? That when a person does a transgression, so he feels guilty, this guilty feeling is an einesh, is a punishment. On the transgression that he did, because he feels guilty, and the only way he can get over feeling guilty is to stop feeling. How do I stop feeling? By doing it again. I become a repeat criminal. Then everything sort of merges together. It becomes blurry and dull. Now the Alter Rebbe says, now let's get things straight. When we say that Rishoyim are in control of their hearts, we're not talking about dead people. What do you mean dead people? Of course, we're talking about live people. But the Torah speaks of people who are not totally out of control of themselves. It's like they're walking dead. Mesim. Even though they're alive, they're still walking around, but they're dead because they're not in control of their lives. They're just like robots. Right? Page 243. Now here's a very important key statement. You should write this down, girls. Hannah, write this down into your book. Very, very important. Page 243. A person who is a wicked person, who has done a transgression, cannot begin to serve Hashem without doing tshuva ala avar techila first. Okay, it's getting to the end of the class, so quickly, yes, it's 9:15. Can't leave you on this note. We have to say, what is it? How do you have to do tshuva first? This is the very beginning of the service of Hashem. There's a turning point in the whole chapter here. The first thing is you have to honest up. You have to honest up to where you're really at. And you have to admit to yourself that you did something wrong. That's hard. Even harder if it were the wrong done was between you and someone else, is to call them up and say, by the way, you're calling me? How come you're calling me? Just want to say I'm sorry. Wow. That's hard. But that's without that, you can't start. That's called harata. That's called regret and owning up to what you did. And that's the beginning of tshuva. Then the albatross drops off your neck and the weight drops off your heart. And then you can begin to start leading a full life. Have a great day, everybody. Put all those good resolutions from Shavuos into effect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give a little
Thank you, Rabbi.
extra tzedakah today, an extra nickel, an extra dime, an extra kapitel tilim, an extra line from Pirkei Avos, and call up a friend and say hi. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too, Rabbi.
Bye.
Bye.
What? You okay? What'd you say?